Yep, that was me in 2022, and I was standing up for Ukraine in Taipei. I don't regret it, but I've learned so much since then, and there's so much more to this story than the simplistic narrative we were all fed. Maybe it's easier if I read out a tweet I wrote back in July. Where were you, Anon, when you took the Ukraine flag off your bio? I think for many of us, it's when we realize that there are two wars going on. The propaganda war in the Western media, full of feel good stories about plucky Ukrainian resilience. And then there's the actual war on the ground, where Ukrainians are fighting and dying while being set up for failure by delayed weapon deliveries, unrealistic expectations of victory, and refusal to negotiate when leverage still existed. It would be much easier for me not to speak up on this, to just shut the up, stick to my lane, stick to energy, heck, stick to China. But I can't choose silence when in my opinion, lives are being wasted. Kill boxes and impossible salients. If you follow the excellent daily update videos of Defense Politics Asia, you'll notice a curious phenomenon. Ukrainian defenders will hold on to a location as Russian forces flank them like a pincer. You'd expect the pincer to close or for the Ukrainian defenders to retreat before that can happen. But instead, you get something else. The Russian forces appear to have no great appetite for taking the territory. Instead, the pincers extend, leaving the Ukrainian defenders in what is now called an impossible salient. But as Defense Politics Asia says, impossible salient is impossible. At some point, you realize the guys in there are dead or as good as dead. This has happened again and again. Bakhmut, Adivka, Chasiv Yar. I think Pokrovsk maybe soon. It takes the Russians absolutely ages to take each town. Pro-Ukrainians boast, yeah, we've turned them into kill boxes, meat grinders for the Russians. Excuse me, if you are the one inside the impossible salient, you are the one being killboxed. If you are the one who don't get the command to retreat before retreat becomes impossible, you are the meat inside the meat grinder. Kursk, the stupidest killbox of them all. Who remembers the jubilant headlines of Ukrainian troops doing a switcheroo and heading into Kursk? All the naval accounts had a field day. But instantly, the same day I believe, Willie OAM pointed out the utter idiocy of the campaign. You're telling me you're fighting a war of attrition, and you've already spread so thin, and you choose to take some of your best guys and YOLO it into a bunch of potato fields? The Russians didn't even bother shutting it down quickly. Just let the Ukrainian elite units hang out until they can get picked off by the second unit guys. In the meantime, the Russians pushed harder than ever on the Eastern Front. And now, does Ukraine even hold any of Kursk? No, they've been pushed entirely out, and the Russians have created a new front in Sumy. What was it all for? I'm not defeatist. I'm counting. Again and again, I've been told to look how much the Russians suck. Look how little those front lines have moved. Yeah, it's because they're fighting a war of attrition, and the Russians have the numerical artillery and drone advantage despite the Ukrainians' Western supplies. I believe it's a 3-to-1 advantage still in artillery for the Russians. Oh, but it's better artillery. No, with artillery, first you need enough. I don't know how close we are to the endgame, but it's going to happen when Ukraine can no longer hold on to their lines. And when that happens, the collapse will be like the breaking of a dam. We know the Ukrainians are straining for men. They resisted and resisted conscripting the 18 to 25-year-olds because when you do that, you're really eating the seed corn of your country. But the yoinking of randos off the streets of Odessa are now pretty normal. Meanwhile, the Russians have better, longer training and are rotated regularly on and off so that they can rest. You tell me how it's going to end. But Angelica, you can't be defeatist. If we're not doing enough, then we should be doing more. It's 2025. Maybe we could have done more in 2022. Even 2023, certainly. But at this point, don't tell me the GDP of Russia is that of Italy or Portugal, or Russia can't possibly last, or Putin is losing power. We've just heard it over and over again for 3 years and more. The shape that the new Ukraine will take is not what any of us wished it would be the year the war started in 2022. The Ukrainians truly earned our support and assistance with their bravery. They inspired the world, but life is not a movie, and we are not on track to a fairy tale ending. To what degree do we owe Ukrainians more support? Maybe with an encouraging nudge that they should start conscripting 18 to 25-year-olds. Like we've been giving them, and to what degree is it time to fast forward to the reality of partition? What does victory look like for Ukraine in 2025? 1991 borders, 2014 borders? What about Ukrainians left to live? So that was my tweet all the way back in July, and now we're in November, and it looks like Pokrovsk is indeed all but fallen. All the fortress city of the Donbass are gonna fall like Skittles, and from that point, I don't see that much holding back the Russians from going all the way to the Dnieper, if they choose to. But it seems like nothing happening on the ground can change the minds of the true believers. They're still trotting out the same narratives like it's 2022, like it's 2023. And unfortunately, that still seems to be most of the Europeans, including their leaders. The situation is beyond dire, and they're still thinking, oh, yeah, just one more round of sanctions on the Russians. That will surely do it. Or, oh, okay, we'll just take their frozen assets and that'll keep Ukraine going for another year. And at some point, you just realize there's no amount of reality that's going to snap them out of it. And the result is, with each passing moment, Ukraine is getting itself into a worse and worse situation. We're in a time of tremendous global turbulence and strife. And for me, there's nothing more important now than to be able to hold on to reality. That is really the most important thing. There's nothing as dangerous as the denial of reality. That's why I'm talking about Ukraine today, even though I'm all the way on the other side of the world in Taipei, and this channel is about the sinosphere. It's not about Ukraine, but I think in a way it's Ukraine that has helped me see how here too in Taiwan we've used the same simplistic, cartoonish narratives that has nothing to do with reality. and we're trying to put it on a very, very complicated situation. And it's so dangerous for all of us. And it's just because we do it or people all over the world do it with good intentions doesn't make it any less bad. It doesn't make it any less sinful, actually. I don't see Taiwan turning into a subtropical Ukraine, by the way. I don't think we have the same relative military strength. I think that we have too little strategic depth. We can't be resupplied endlessly. But it's, first of all, I don't want there to be a military confrontation at all, if possible. And also, you just don't know with those situations how badly things can go, how far south things can spiral with enough bad luck and stupidity. And unfortunately, that just seems to be one of the things that there's no shortage of in our world these days. So, yeah, what I see are potentially manageable regional conflicts spiraling out of control because of what exactly? Because of foreign cheerleading squads who follow a geopolitical situation like it's a ball game, but it's going to be the people on the ground who gets hurt. I've said the other episode that the most controversial thing I can talk about on this channel is reunification, but that's actually not true. Over on my Twitter account, the topic that constantly brings me the most hate, the most vitriol, and the most endlessly unproductive arguments is whenever I bring up the subject of Ukraine and how bad things are and how they need to make a deal. I'll put up some lovely screen caps, I think, here and there to give you a flavor. Seriously, I try not to block people on my channel because I do think that it's important to have discussion. But usually when I block someone, more likely than not, it's like a NAFO type. And they're hugely rude and insufferable. And they always call me a Russian shill or I'm getting paid off by Putin. It's like they cannot imagine somebody who's made up their mind in good faith, who was on their side but have changed their mind because we've learned more and we've seen more, and also more stuff have happened that you have to take into account. How are we still having this conversation in 2025? Just one more super missile and then we'll turn it all around, just hit some more Russian refineries and somehow Russia will just come crumbling down, or maybe Putin will get couped, or it's just so tiresome. But at the same time, like, Russia is supposed to be so weak that they're just supposed to keel over any moment now. Like, that's literally the plan, because they say, yeah, Ukraine is losing land, but at such a slow rate. The Russians are advancing at such a slow rate. We can keep this going forever. That also means you don't have a plan to win, right? You don't ever have a plan to win. How are you going to turn it the other way around? And the truth of the matter is, they feel like if you are the moral side, if you're on the side of the angels, you don't need to have a strategy. You just need to keep resisting, keep battling evil, keep throwing yourself, even if it's against a superior force, even if the facts on the ground are not on your side, because somehow then things will turn out right, and Putin is Hitler, and we can't let Hitler win. And if we do that, then somehow he's going to be marching into Poland or something. I just really don't understand their logic. The truth of the matter is, nobody likes to compromise when they're in a good position, but that's always the best time to compromise. And then if you're actually losing, then the second best time to compromise, if you don't have a plan to turn it around, is right now. And people never want to hear that. Ukraine had the best leverage, the most chips on the table at Istanbul. I think that was late 2022. But they didn't do it then because of this all or nothing thinking. In a way, it's the supporters of Ukraine, those who egged it on, against a much larger neighbor with a superior force that have the Ukrainian blood on their hands. There's an excellent thread by Magma Matrix spelling out the whole sorry tale on Twitter. I'll link to it, but I'll just read the part where it ends. In conclusion, had Ukraine leveraged its 2022 position of advantage to negotiate a partial territorial concessions while maintaining sovereignty and Western integration, it could have emerged as a fortified, Western-aligned state with sustainable security guarantees. Well, it's not going to get this deal now. It's going to get a much worse deal. But if it doesn't make a deal now, then the next deal is going to be worse than this. And I just hate to see it. I just hate to see how clearly this is playing out for the world to see, by the way. And the world sees this very, very clearly. I think outside of Europe and America, all of us see what's going on in Ukraine quite clearly, like how badly they're losing. Some people think the Russians are totally wrong and evil. Some of us think, oh no, they were provoked. There were red lines that were crossed. They have their own security considerations. Let's not even get into that. And for the record, of course, I don't think Putin should have invaded. But you have to separate what you want to happen or what you think is the morally correct thing to happen with the reality. Again, it all goes back to being in relation with reality rather than your fantasy. I hear people all the time on Twitter saying, well, none of this death and destruction will be happening if the Russians just went home. That's not how war works. That's never been how war works. And you saying that it's a waste of pixels. And it's actually causing harm. Like I said, I don't think Taiwan will become another Ukraine. It's probably going to be a more decisive conflict if it happens due to our proximity to China. But there is also like a small and non-zero possibility that it would spiral into World War III. So it's the same stupid clowns pushing the same sort of stupid narratives down our throats. And really, I think it's incumbent on all of us to speak out on this. I almost feel like it's like, Slav versus Slavs season 3 has gotten a bit old. How about let's get started on a new series? It's a bad, dangerous, authoritarian Chinese against the plucky, democratic Taiwanese. I don't want to see that show. I don't need the Pacific reboot of what's happening in Ukraine. What really pushed me over the edge to record this video was seeing another video being shared on Twitter that I actually did not watch because I'm pretty sure it would not be safe for life. But what happens in the video is 2 civilians and their dogs getting blown up by a drone. And it's amazing to me because the Russian accounts are saying they are civilians trying to reach the Russian lines to safety. This was in Pokrovsk, I believe. And that they were killed by Ukrainian drones. They say that retreating Ukrainian soldiers often kill civilians out of spite because they believe that they're pro-Russian. That's what the Russian side says, and then the pro-Ukrainian side use that exact same video, and they say it's actually a Russian drone killing civilians for some reason, because that's just what Russian orcs do. Or other times they say it's a false flag attack from the Russians to make the Ukrainians look bad. Same video, but it's like we're living in two different realities, and people have the ability to distort the same piece of information in completely different ways. And if that can happen, what hope is there of actually coming to some kind of consensus on what's actually happening? I'm not gonna pretend I know what happened in that video. I didn't even watch it, so I'm not gonna play awesome detective from half a world away. But it is important for all of us on a more global level to try and disentangle the narrative from the reality. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time justifying our priors. And yeah, it could be the way we end up, like sleepwalking into disaster while thinking that we're just being good people. And the good people don't listen to the bad people, right? Because bad people, they're always spreading propaganda. Morality is important. It'll always be important. We're human beings, I believe we're moral beings, but what is moral cannot be judged until we have first discerned reality. Otherwise, we're going to make the wrong calculation. And if we cannot discern, if we cannot listen to the other side calmly, then we cannot discern morality, because we cannot even discern reality. It's not until you really are opening yourself to what's going on before you can make the right moral decision. That should be the last step. If you're starting with a moral narrative and making your mind based on that, you are doing things completely ass backwards. So, this is all I ask of you, whichever side of whatever issue you are on, to try and spend 1 minute for every 5 minutes you listen to your own side, listening to the other side. So, say if you're pro-Taiwanese independence, if you, for every 5 pro-Taiwanese independence accounts you follow one that's a Chinese account. Or the opposite, if you're a super China boo, try and follow, I don't know, Michael Pettis or Robin Brooks, or one of the economists who say that the Chinese economy is actually going to collapse. Follow Gordon Chang. I don't know. But all I'm saying is it's really important to listen to the other side, especially, of course, the more neutral, even-keeled ones. But don't dismiss anybody just because they're on the wrong side, and that therefore what they say is automatically propaganda. Guess what? It's all propaganda. Our side have propaganda too. Just listen. You don't have to believe it. Just take note of what's being said on this side and that side on any particular event, and wait. And wait and see which side predicts what happens next better, and which side is caught by surprise again, or have to pump more copium to keep their narrative alive again. Yeah. If you shut yourself off from people who don't agree with you because you want to avoid being propagandized, if you dismiss people because they're passing on Russian propaganda or Chinese propaganda, or American propaganda for that matter, I can guarantee you one thing. You are actually the one being propagandized.